This month's tip for HoneyBook Insider is going to be about the pipeline. This is one of the most underutilized features, I think, that a small business owner could maximize. And so let me just start from the beginning. This is, again, if this is your first time seeing these videos, I'm in a demo account. So it's a hot mess in here. Just go with it, roll with it. All right. So, first things first, there's so many of us testing features in this demo account that it's never completely organized. But if you go to the left-hand side of your toolbar, you're going to go to projects. From here, there is an AI feature to kind of help keep your pipeline clean. If you want that, as you can tell from this pop-up screen, we're going to just say maybe later because we don't need that right now. But for me and for my clients, the pipeline to me should be about a 30,000 foot overview of where you are with your business at all times. I feel like you should be able to come in and for example, for me, I have 300 projects actively currently right now going on. And so it gets a little overwhelming. For me, you should be able to come in here, go down the pipeline, and really be able to assess where your attention needs to go at any given point in time. So I like to automate things or have things move down the pipeline that makes the most sense. I should be able to see who has signed a contract, but who hasn't paid me, because that is going to be a very different type of follow-up that I would have towards my clients. So for example, if they signed the contract but they haven't paid me, I should be able to know that. That's why it's two different things here. I'm in two different stages. But you can do what's best. And I'm just going to walk you through a couple of possibilities. And for those who have multiple services, I'm going to walk you through how to potentially split it. So yesterday I was working with a client. They have two different types of attendees. One is a host and one is an actual attendee. Those are two different pipelines that they have to track. If you're a host for them, they work on conferences, they're wedding planners, they work with retreats, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you're a host, you need to sign a contract. You would also need to be able to go through presentations and sign different things, but there's not a payment being made here. Does that make sense? Because it's more of a collaboration, but there's still a process involved there. That's a very different pipeline than someone who is a paid attendee, who needs to get the next steps, who needs to know what to pack, who needs to know when to bring, and all of the above. Similar to anyone who runs videography and photography, anyone who is, also doing wholesale flowers versus someone who is also selling individual pre-made flower bouquets. And so that gives you a good, healthy, aspect of what and how different you can make each pipeline. Okay, so you have your views here on this project page. Right now, we're just going to work on customizing one main pipeline. Your main view is going to have all of the services and all of the different stages that you have in one go. So we're going to go to the right-hand side and go to Customize, click on that, and go to Edit Pipeline Stages. So in this scenario, I'm going to choose a wedding-based industry because that's most of my followers, but I'll try to give examples for service-based and for speakers, et cetera, too, as well. Okay. So opportunities and projects. So you should be tracking your lead pipeline. This is a great way to follow up with those who have not followed up with you or who are just suggesting with you or just kind of considering you. So here under stages, you can create as many of these as you want. So for example, if they receive an inquiry, that is automatic. You can see this Thunderbolt being here. That means that it's being managed by the pipeline automation below. So if I click on this, here is my pipeline automation. This supersedes any automations you physically have in the actual automation screen. So don't be alarmed, but you do need to take both into account when you're creating this. So the stages that I want, you need to know your client journey. And if you don't know your client journey, I have a free client journey worksheet that I'm going to link below and into this email if you're on the list. But I think it's super helpful for you to understand the journey that you want your clients to go on in order to determine your pipeline. So, for example, once an inquiry is received, that is typically on default. You can't really change that. As soon as someone fills out your contact form or your lead form, it will go to inquiry received. From there, if you have a discovery call, this is set to first email sent. You can change what this is. So it used to be that this default was the follow up, but a lot of people are moving more and more towards calls now. And so this says discovery call. You can change it to whatever you want. And just so those following along, all I'm doing is clicking. This is a text box if I'm in editing pipeline stages. Now, I don't want like the discovery call to be under first email sent. So I'm going to toggle that off, and then you'll see that Thunderbolt disappeared from this one. In the automation screen, which is different from the pipeline, in your automation screen, you can say that when the session is scheduled, move the pipeline stage to discovery call. That is an option that you have. Now, once the proposal is set, and in HoneyBook terms, a proposal is defined by a contract and an invoice in one file. Once that is set, you're going to click a new stage, and a lot of us have follow-ups. So if they don't pay the proposal, how many times will you follow up? This is helpful, I find, for a lot of reasons. I like to track my follow-ups because then I can know if they're being migrated down the pipeline and if there's movement involved. Because then sometimes when, especially if you have hundreds of inquiries, it is really difficult to scroll down the list and keep track of where everyone is. And so sometimes you're just kind of circling around the same 20 over and over and over again. Whereas if you had multiple here, you can kind of just pay attention and just know, like, I pretty much don't touch anybody that's in follow-up one for me because I know that they're going to get multiple more follow-ups from me automatically, if that makes sense. So sometimes I just like to see, so like this is a suggestion I could have. Another one you could have would be to say warm lead or hot lead. Like if you don't necessarily have an automatic follow-up process and you just want to track who you're going to follow up with. If I'm under financial goals that I have, and I'm trying to meet my financial goal, and I'm really close to making my financial goal for the month, I'm going to go after everybody who's under a warm lead, right? If I didn't have the follow-up sequences, because they are more than likely going to buy from me and going to give me money. So that's another way that you could structure your pipeline if that makes sense to you. For some of you that get a lot of inquiries that say now is not a great time, I do recommend Q1 follow-up like this. Instead of the cold and the automated follow-ups, I would suggest this way. Having a Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Now you're going to manually move all of the leads into this stage. It's not going to be automated, but as someone tells you, hey, this is not a great time for us, if you can follow back up with us in 6 months, if you've moved that lead over to Q3, when it's Q3, you're going to open and click on this stage, and everyone who's ready for a follow-up is going to be ready for you. So there's different ways to manipulate the pipeline stages for sure under leads. So hopefully one of these is helpful for you. Once they've paid you, again, this is your big main pipeline, right? Once they've paid you, then you can see it goes to contract signed, right? First payment received, deposit paid. If you don't like the word deposit, you're welcome to change it. Just click on it and click retainer or something like that. From there, most of the time it says second payment received is photo shoot day, but sometimes it used to say planning, right? So again, you can change what this means. Typically for me, I turn this off. But if you have questions that you want to send and you want to know when they've been submitted, you can have different stages on here because I'm going to follow up with anyone who did not submit my questions and I need them back, right? So in the automation screen, you can have an automation that says, once the questions have been submitted, move the pipeline stage to questions submitted. Then I know immediately who I do need to track and who I don't need to be tracking, right? They've done their part, and so on and so forth. Now, if you have multiple services and you want to track different stages for each one, you can do that. This is where emojis are going to be your best friend, honestly, because you get limited characters here. So, for example, I can say, let's do camera. If I was saying video versus photo, right? So, photo timeline versus a video. So, let's do video, right? Timeline here. Okay, so if you are to do that, and I'm going to click save now. Okay, now you can have multiple views. So if under main view, sometimes this is quite a long scroll to go side by side. It's not very helpful. So what you'll do here is you're going to hover next to the main view and you're going to click add custom view. Once you do that, you will be able to select the best version for you. So if you hover over new view and click on the three dots that magically appear, you will then get rename. And I'm going to name this to a lead pipeline so that I can track just my leads. I don't want anyone in the green. So what I'm going to do here, I'm under lead pipeline, right? You see the line, and I'm going to customize on the right-hand side, edit pipeline stages. And then from there, there's a magical little eyeball that appears. So I want inquiry received, I want discovery call, I want proposal sent, right? And then I want massive follow-up. So I want Q1, Q2, Q3. I want warm and cold, but I don't want the follow-up sequence. So I could hover over follow-up one, follow untitled one, that didn't save for some reason. And then here, I don't want anything under projects, right? Because I don't care. I'm just looking like for sales. So I will hover over and click on the eyeball that appears and make sure that there's a line over it. Once I do that, I'm going to click save. And there. Now I'm only seeing just my lead pipeline. Similarly, if I wanted to break it down into two different services, then I could. So I could say service one. Now, service one could be massively different, right? So again, I'm going to go to the right-hand side and go to customize. Service one might be a little more high touch or maybe a little more automated. So maybe I do want to say, okay, I don't actually need Q1, Q2, Q3. I don't need warm or hot. What I do need is to have them follow up like crazy. So I'm going to do follow up 1, 2, and so on and so forth and leave those open. And then I do want to see if they get questions, session planning, and this is for photography, but not for videography. I don't need planning for this. I don't want them to have feedback, but I do want to know when the project's closed. Now I have a pipeline specifically for the first service. And so I could just come in here and focus on that one particular service and understand where those particular clients are at. So you will want different stages for different, if you're saying, okay, well, service one and service two, I don't want to see the same questions, right? I don't want to see the same people because they're overlap. Well, then you're going to have to create different stages, and you can create as many as you want. So there's not any, you can have like a photography question submitted and a videography question submitted if you wanted to have two different ones, and then that way it goes down the pike. All of those can be under automations if you want to on the left, but just remember that under main view, you're going to get a combination of all your different pipelines across the board. So that one is just something to be aware of. That could be a little confusing sometimes, but hopefully this is super helpful for you. I, again, really feel like a clean pipeline is a great way to go. And the last thing I wanted you to know is that now you can view everything in Kanban view. So if you go to the right-hand side and go to board view, if you prefer it this way and you prefer to move them along, you can absolutely do that. That's totally your call. So whatever method is better for you and your brain, please go ahead and do that. Customize it to your liking. Again, I highly recommend that you understand your client journey before setting up your pipeline, but this is super helpful so you can kind of come into your workday and set up everything up as you need to and know exactly where your clients need you to focus on today. Okay, have a good one.